We're back with Tech Talk, where we continue to dive deep into the innovations that are transforming industries and reshaping the world, only on Now Media TV.
Welcome back to Tech Talk. We're pleased to have Jim Bradfield back. As you remember, Jim joined us recently and talked a little bit about his family's history being in the wireless industry for over 100 years. Jim, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So as we talked about before, we briefly touched a little bit about how wireless networks were supporting robotics and automation, how it's being implemented now in almost every industry. In fact, I just saw where you can buy your own personal robot maybe in a couple of years for like $20,000 to $30,000. But obviously,
wow.
We've got yes. I think it's a Tesla thing actually, but we'll see. I'm almost tempted to say that these are not the droids that I was looking for, but we will go there right now. We'll talk a little bit about security risks, because obviously there's going to be a lot more security risks with regards to every time that we increase our technology use. So let's take a little bit step back and talk a little bit more about your company again, kind of picking up from where we left off last time. How long has your company been involved in the security aspects of networks? And nowadays, what kind of issues do you see your clients experiencing with cybersecurity?
So we started in security when basically what it was just, going around and checking people's logins and passwords and making sure that the logins and passwords were, not Jim Bradfield, kind of thing, right? Or, my birthday or, today's date or whatever. And making sure that they didn't have little stickers on their computer that said their password and all that kind of thing. And then, we ended up working with, in the early 2000s, we got a lot of work with the city of San Francisco. And, that there was really no cybersecurity kind of thing back then. That really wasn't a thing. I mean, some people knew about it, but, it really wasn't around. And so really what it was the password and making sure that, passwords were secure and things were secure on the network and whatever, from internal people messing them up. Well, it turns out that we helped them build a fiber WAN and their fiber WAN network that were, I think it was used by about 65 different people. 65 different departments within the city and county of San Francisco. And, it turned out that the guys that we worked with, he got disgruntled somehow. And boy, I'll tell you, he kept the passwords and wouldn't let the city and county, his bosses, enter him or get into them or even let him know what they were. I mean,
I remember that. I remember that. That was a couple of years before I became CISO for Nashville, and that was still a major topic that we talked about as far as like city security and government security. Yeah. That yes, he left. He was disgruntled, and yet he took the keys to the kingdom with him.
Yeah, the keys to the kingdom. Exactly right, and that's exactly what he did. I mean, basically he hijacked them for about, it was only 2 weeks. It was like 10, 12, 14 days, whatever. It wasn't a very long period of time. And it turns out that he was hiding his background and some other kinds of things. But, basically what he did was instead of actually putting the passwords and backups in some sort of secure environment or anything like that. I mean, he basically set the routers up to basically store the configurations in the memory instead of on the hard drive. So, imagine if the power goes out or something like that, boom, it's gone, because he didn't save. He didn't do that. You remember the old days when you had to make sure you had save? Well, you still do, but he didn't say.
I was trying to remember the CLI, the command line interface command for saving the config in the Cisco router, and I can't. Maybe it was just save. I don't remember.
Right save,
Oh, there you go. Okay, I was close.
Yeah, and so he didn't write save. All he did was put it on there. And, if they'd have had a power outage, which you would have back in those days, because there were no real backup systems. We had UPSs and some other kinds of things, but really nobody had a giant backup, really. And so if that had gone away, the whole city would have gone out and there would be no way to get into the network. They would have had to basically trash the whole thing. Well, that's exactly what, they tried. The city tried really hard. And we actually worked with Gavin Newsom. And he brought us in because we had done a pretty good job for them early on in the development of the network. So he brought us in and he said, hey, let's see what we can do. So, we tried to reverse engineer a whole bunch of stuff and go back through everything. And, this guy had done such a really good job of messing with this equipment that we couldn't do anything. So, and they didn't just have us, they had Accenture and just all kinds of other people. And, it cost them about $1 million, maybe a little bit under $1 million, 900,000. Right. But anyway, that was kind of a drag, and so they ended up settling with this guy, and he got the shaft and got in prison for a while and all kinds of stuff. But that was kind of our start of how do we doesn't get multiplied throughout the rest of the cities and counties and everything. So we started doing a bunch of work with cities and counties and all those kind of things. And like you said, with the CISO for Nashville, same kind of thing, right? We worked with you guys to make sure that, because you can't get to everything, and they had us figuring out how to make things happen. And then, we eventually worked from there. We did a lot of healthcare systems, and one of actually a really big healthcare system provider in Santa Barbara, essentially what they did was they called us in and they said, let's do an audit like you would do. You would have us come in to certify an audit, right? Well, we certified the audit and gave all the documentation to everybody. And so when they went to go renew their insurance, and all that, the insurance company took a look at the docs and said, great, you're good. Well, not so much, because after that happened, probably shortly thereafter, I'm going to say a few months, they had a breach of about, I think, 25,000 patient records, which is a lot. And they were fined like $25 million. And the insurance company looked at our documentation and said, oh, okay, well, you're all good. So we'll eat the fine. Well, but then the insurance company, being smart, said, bring these guys back in here and let's do another audit. Well, turned out that the IT guy who was in charge of all this stuff didn't air gap the stuff that he was supposed to. In fact, he was working from home most of the time. So he left the back door open, and he didn't he didn't have any security on his own home network.
And that brings up a couple of good points there too. First of all, that things can change. An audit is not going to guarantee future security. It's a moment in time. You're looking at things as they were, and so sometimes things can change. Or to your point too, sometimes I don't know if this was the case, but I would imagine that maybe the IT person thought that their setup was out of scope because it was just basically a VPN connection in. And you almost are inherently going to think that an IT person would keep their systems secure on their home side coming in. And sometimes that's not the case. It's easier said than done to do something like that. So eventually you found the backdoor issues and were able to satisfy.
We found everything. That we went through every step that we had gone through before and found the back door. And it was really simple. He had just left an opening for him to be able to connect remotely from outside, and all the stuff, where the records are kept is supposed to be air gapped, and obviously it was not, right. And so they didn't have any security. It's sad, but they ended up having to repay the $25 million, and that was kind of a big deal. And
they had to repay the insurance company back for the, oh, wow. Because they realized that there was a back door there, actually.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, and that's kind of a big deal. And then, we've had several other kinds of things. We had a Hawaiian healthcare system that, kept getting hacked and all that. And it turned out that it was a really simple thing. They were getting phished, right? Mm-hmm. So they were they only had like 9 employees, in this healthcare insurance exchange, right? And they were getting phished, and they would click, and somebody's asking for their password or whatever, and sure, no problem. These guys are nice as can be. They're just giving everybody whatever they wanted, and all these patient records got exposed. And I mean, it was a nightmare. So we helped them with figuring out how to do phishing attacks, and pen tests and all kinds of things like that for them.
But so why do phishing attacks still work, though? You would think that in this day and age that with all of our awareness training, we would have slayed that beast.
Because what happens is you don't see, if you don't look at it very carefully, it looks like it's exactly from the right people, number one. Number two, what happens is they don't pay attention to it, and they're hurried up. And somebody's going, hey, send me, you're quick. I logged myself out. Oh my God, what do I do? Give me the server, bing, dong, and they're in. I mean, it's just that simple. And, the only thing that people can really do for that is, don't do that. And they have to get, training from somebody, from KnowBe4 or somebody, and make sure that they don't do that. Make sure that they're aware of phishing attacks, and just, people get nailed all the time. And that is what happens to manufacturers, right? All the stuff that's in the manufacturing, all the robotics that we kind of talked about the other day, it happens on the farms. It happens in manufacturing plants. It happens just about everywhere. It's a really a big deal. And, I know your normal CISO podcast thing, that's a big deal. Talking about farmers and all those poor guys that have absolutely no, imagine if you're trained and you get fished. Imagine if you're a farmer, and how would he know? And
exactly.
How would he know that he's not secure, and all of these kind of things? And they can disrupt the food supply, and a lot of guys got hacked during COVID, because there was nothing for anybody to do but sit there and hack everybody, and all these guys kind of got hacked. And
idle time is the devil's something or another, right?
Oh yeah, man, it's just, it's brutal. And then, you take a look at, all the manufacturing robots now, and all the robots, see, almost everything is robotic. And you've even got robots in the cars and things like that. And, we work with Tesla and some of these guys quite a bit to help them, figure out the wireless networks and all. Well, they're not secure. So the car is subject to hack. When it gets close to the network, boom, it's on the network. Well, if you don't secure the thing, and you can take control of the car and you can drive that thing off the road. I mean, that's more of a, oh, well, look at what I could do kind of thing. Nobody's going to ransomware you for, a car attack, right? But it's still a thing, and it's a big thing in manufacturing plants, an absolutely big thing. The ransomware and all the other kinds of things that happen in those plants with all those robots. And most everything is connected to the network.
Right.
It's IoT stuff is all on the network. They go wherever, and people don't understand. You've got to air gap these networks. I mean, think about all the stuff that can happen to them.
Right. Well, it's definitely a much more confusing world, and I get back to I could see 10 years from now, I have a personal robot that's making me like a drink or something. Not that I drink, so it would be like a cranberry juice, and brings it to me, and then the robot gets fished, and all of a sudden the robot's spilling the drink on me. So maybe we'll talk a little bit more about robotics and personal robotics next time. Jim, it's been absolutely fabulous having you back. You're always a wealth of information. Love chatting with you.
Yeah, same here, man. Yeah, let's talk about those robotics next time, and I'll make sure that we talk about some farm things, because I know that a lot of the viewers are farmer guys in the area you guys are in. So
And I can guarantee that every one of the viewers are people who eat. So, so I appreciate you being on, and we'll be right back.
Stick around. We'll be right back with more cutting-edge discussions and tech insights on Tech Talk, only on Now Media TV.